You know that feeling, right? That sting of a broken promise. That sense that an agreement you thought you had, even one that was never spoken out loud, has just been shattered. Sometimes it's small, it's personal. But other times, a broken promise can be so big it reshapes an entire city, with echoes that last for generations. And that is exactly the kind of story we're going to get into today.
So let's start somewhere a lot of us can probably relate to, the world of sports. It's a place with just incredible passion and loyalty. But, as any real fan knows, that loyalty is so often met with some pretty deep frustration. It's a total emotional roller coaster.
This one simple question, just posted on a Reddit forum for fans of the Tampa Bay Rays baseball team, opened the floodgates. It just tapped right into this shared feeling that their loyalty to the team, well, it was a one-way street. You know the deal. They cheer, they buy the jerseys, they stick with the team through good times and bad.
And then, poof, a fan-favorite player gets traded away, usually just to save some money. And the fans, they feel checked out, totally disconnected. For them, it's not just the business of baseball. It feels like a personal betrayal. It's this recurring theme, right? We give you our loyalty, and what we get back feels like disloyalty.
So, what is going on here? Why does a business decision feel so much like a personal promise being broken? Well, it turns out there's actually a name for that feeling, a whole psychological framework that explains it perfectly.
It's called a psychological contract. And no, this isn't a piece of paper you sign. It's this powerful, unspoken agreement we carry around in our heads with our favorite teams, with our employers, and yeah, even with our cities.
Okay, so at its core, a psychological contract is your belief about what you owe someone and what they owe you back. For a fan, it might be, hey, I give you my unwavering loyalty, and in return, you at least try to keep a competitive, beloved team on the field. So when the team trades away its best players, it feels like they've just torn up that unwritten contract.
In an office, a psychological contract breach, it leads to unhappy employees who are way more likely to quit. For a sports team, it leads to disillusioned fans who might just quit by not showing up or not tuning in. It's the same exact principle, just in a different arena. But what happens when this breach of trust affects not just a fan's feelings, but the very existence of an entire community?
And this is where the story pivots. We're zooming out from the baseball fan to the baseball stadium itself. Because the land where the Tampa Bay Rays play in St. Petersburg, Florida, is at the absolute heart of a much bigger, much more devastating story of a broken promise.
Before Tropicana Field was even a thought, this area was home to the Gasplant district, a thriving, primarily black community. And as former resident Reverend Watson Haynes remembers it, this wasn't just a collection of houses. It was self-sufficient, it was tight-knit, it was, in his words, a family.
See, back in 1979, the city made a promise to the residents. We're going to invest here, bring jobs, bring new housing. But by 1986, that promise was gone, replaced by a totally new vision, a baseball stadium. The result was the complete and total erasure of the neighborhood. The psychological contract wasn't just breached, it was literally bulldozed.
And you have to understand, this did not happen in a vacuum. The displacement of the Gasplant community was part of a long, well-documented history of systemic racism, policies that actively harmed black residents and businesses in St. Petersburg for decades.
Just listen to the words of former resident Rosalind Graham. I felt betrayed. I felt hurt. I mean, that is the exact language of a psychological contract breach, but on a scale that is almost impossible to imagine. The promise of homeownership, of community, was replaced by forced relocation.
The promise was for economic prosperity. The reality was a devastating collapse. Just look at this data. The number of black-owned businesses with employees was cut in half, literally in half, in just 5 years after the displacement.
And the consequences are still being felt today, in the most profound ways you can think of. This number? This is the life expectancy gap between the historically black south side of St. Petersburg and the wealthy, mostly white Snell Isle neighborhood just a few miles away. 15.5 years. And those economic promises, they're still just promises. Between 2014 and 2018, just 1.6% of the city's prime contract dollars went to black-owned firms. This is the long, long shadow of that broken promise. But the story doesn't just end there. After all these decades, a new chapter is being written, an attempt to finally address this 40-year-old wound.
So you can see the path here. It stretches from that original promise in '79 to the breach all the way to today. In 2023, the city and the Rays baseball team reached a new agreement to redevelop that very same land.
And the city's leadership, they are not shying away from this history. The current mayor, Ken Welch, whose own family has roots in the area, has explicitly framed this new project as a way to finally make good on the commitments that were broken all those years ago. The goal, as they stated, is to create the housing, the jobs, and the economic opportunity that were promised to the original Gasplant residents, to finally fulfill that unwritten contract with their descendants and the entire community.
Now, this effort in St. Petersburg isn't happening in isolation. It's actually part of a much wider movement where institutions are starting to look inward and really grapple with their own histories of systemic inequity.
Take the University of South Florida, for instance. They created this public data dashboard to track diversity and anti-racism efforts. It's a tool for accountability, really, highlighting disparities in everything from who gets promoted to student loan debt, making what was invisible visible for everyone to see.
This broader reckoning brings us to a really powerful concept: reparations. In fact, a City Commission report on this very history describes reparations as the most tangible way to actually remedy the harm that was done.
Because for the families and descendants of the Gasplant neighborhood, repairing a psychological contract breach that has lasted for generations, it requires more than just words or an apology. It requires tangible action, restitution, in the form of housing, wealth creation, and real opportunities.
And all of this leaves us with one final very big question. When the damage of a broken promise runs this deep, across multiple generations, can a new development project ever truly equal repair? What does it actually take to mend a city's soul?